Steve Ray, exit 425. It's where we live today. I'm out standing in a field, not my field. This is at the Curtis Memorial Park, a place where if you're my vintage and you've got kids, they probably played soccer here at some point in their soccer lives. One of the missions of exit 425 is to obviously engage people by informing them, but informing them by way of the people who are involved in issues and stories speaking for themselves. Today's guest is PVNC Catholic School Board trustee Josh Glover, who has had a bit of a rocky go on his first term as a school board trustee, but he's going to talk to exit 425 about some of the issues that are bubbling around right now with education. So in his own voice, in his own words, and speaking for himself, right here on exit 425, Catholic School Board trustee Josh Glover, today on exit 425. It's where we live. Today's guest at exit 425.
In the main corridor of exit 425.
Local politicians to connect with families.
What are some unique challenges?
Thanks very much, Steve, for having me.
Exit 425. It's where we live. Josh Glover, it's great to speak with you again. You're the trustee for the PVNC Catholic District School Board for Clarington, and you've been on exit 425 before. It's great to see you again, and thank you for meeting me here at exit 425.
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure.
Josh Glover, you've experienced some school board exile over this past term. Can you share with us what happened and fill us in when it ended? And it seemed to me there were some issues at your March board meeting as well. Any follow-up from that?
Well, thank you for the question, Steve. I think the audience ought to be aware that many of the questions of which you're asking me here today, I've not had any sort of knowledge of what they are beforehand. I think it's important for elected officials to approach interviews in an unscripted manner, be able to answer questions from the public impromptu, and know exactly where they stand. On this issue related to the sanctions, well, much of that has been documented by the Peterborough Examiner in relation to the 2024 sanctions, the two of them. And I came back to the board in November, very happy to do so. It was a lot of fun to enter the boardroom again, very excited. And since then, it's been sort of this acclimation process of coming back to the board and familiarizing myself with the direction and where it is the board wants to go in this final year. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun, taken a lot of initiative in this final year here, and I hope that the constituents of Clarington appreciate what it is that I'm doing here. I'm happy to do it. So. You asked about March. What specifically about March are you referring to?
It seemed to me either late March or early April at a board meeting, there was a conflict between you and another trustee. And I think at some point you had some concerns that you published online about that may have been shared with the police. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in March, at our board meeting in March, board meetings can get very heated. We have a code of conduct. There are standards of professionalism that we have to uphold. And at that meeting, I would say that those standards were not met to the degree of which the Peterborough Police had to be notified. There is an occurrence number. I think the public should be aware when incidents like that occur. These meetings are streamed, but they are not recorded and available to the people of Clarington on the official board website. I've taken it upon myself to inform the public as much as I can within the confines of our code of conduct and our privacy restrictions and things of this nature. Very responsible. The public has a right to know. So yes, I had to contact the Peterborough Police and report this incident, and that the event of which I believe you're referring to. Yes.
Lots been happening with education recently, and of course education and school boards fall under the purview of the provincial government. And the provincial government's been saying a lot about potential changes to school board governance. And they've made some changes clear. I've read that there's possibly more changes coming, or there's some lack of certainty on certain things. But what are your thoughts about the potential changes to school board governance?
Yeah, the Ministry of Education has been extremely busy since I arrived at the board in 2022. It began with Bill 98, and then we had Bill 33, and now we have Bill 101. There does seem to be a logic behind the bills. There is a continuation, which I think is encouraging in that sense. Bill 98, I felt, addressed a very important issue of which I had seen, which is the trustee codes of conduct, trying to provide some consistency with adjudicating these trustee conflicts. They can be very expensive. Of course, the taxpayers would be paying for that. So you want to ensure that measures are taken for internal mediation to take place before you spend taxpayer money on acquiring a mediator. This was actually something, the Universal Code of Conduct is actually something I had presented at the OCSTA. So when it came to Bill 98, Bill 98 had actually addressed a lot of things that I was already ahead of. And I was actually taking it to the OCSTA and say, listen, standards of conduct, I think we should all work towards having a united standard amongst all boards. We're all elected officials. Why is there these gradients of interpretation? Ideally, we want to have one standard, and I had called it the Universal Code of Conduct. Bill 98 does a lot of things, and I definitely want to defer to educators and parents and students who may differ and take issue with a lot of this legislation. The question for me was related to governance. And when it comes to governance, I do think that the logic of these bills is very promising. I do think it is going to address a lot of the issues. And if it doesn't, then we simply move on from it. This legislation is going to be implemented. Things needed to change. Let's see what happens, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we make adjustments.
One of the biggest features that has been talked about and has gained a lot of attention in the media is the potential removal of trustees. And right now, with an election looming in the fall, there are different situations where people are unsure whether there will be trustees or what their role will be, because, changing the job, they may not eliminate the job, but they could change the job. Those boards that are under the ministry supervision right now, there's some concerns about whether the trustee role will even exist there. Do you think there is a place for trustees from the community in school boards going forward? Do you think that's a valuable job to be filled?
Yeah, absolutely. I respect the title immensely. The title is one thing. The person who fills the title is another. The role of trustee is only as good as the person of whom assumes a position. In the last election, how many positions of trustee went acclaimed? We have to ask ourselves, how much are trustees being compensated for the work of which they do? That being the case, are we incentivizing the public to become trustees? And I think if more incentive is placed, then you will start to see people assume this position that would appreciate that the degree of difficulty is really high, let's say. However, that's not an excuse. You're assuming the role to achieve results for your constituents, and with that means overcoming the immensity of the problems. So trustees who sort of maybe lament, or I can understand this, but I'm a big proponent now of the cream rising to the top. The issues in education are such that our elected representatives ought to be some of the best and brightest we have in our society. And I would actually say that the relatively low compensation that trustees get is probably a good litmus test for the integrity and the, let's say, motive for the people who run in the position. For it's clear that anybody who is young or anybody in general, they're becoming a trustee not for any sort of financial gain, right? They're by and large getting involved in this field, this vocation for the right reasons. But it is only through the trial by fire that we start to realize who is it that we actually want to follow. So the role of trustee is different, Steve. Like, you elect me to be your voice. When I get on the school board, we're supposed to be one voice, right? So what happens if we're one voice and there's one person who sort of differentiates from the one, right? What right do they have to dissent? I would say in the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of judicial precedents have been set that protect the one, protect the voice of the one. I would name the Sloat v. Grand Erie precedent that has been set, the Berchowski ruling that has been set. There's a handful of them. But if you look into the legal case law of the last 2 years, that is as important as the bills, Bill 98, 33, and 101. And when I look at those case precedents, Steve, I say the sky's the limit for trustees. I actually think that we are approaching the golden era of representation. I really do. If you look at that slow precedent, I think we're approaching the golden era. I'm not hearing this positivity. And I'm not sure why that deficit is there. But I look at Bill 98, Bill 33, Bill 101, and accountability. Yeah. EQAO scores are not that good. A lot of boards are in deficit. The facts are the facts. So I think we are in the golden era of representation. And we all have a lot to look forward to, especially here in Clarington. I mean, we're a smaller board, so some of these measures of restricting the size of a board to 12, these things of this nature, it doesn't affect us. Yeah.
So you see value in the role of a trustee, and you think that the compensation limits, let's put it this way, the low compensation maybe draws out the people who are more passionate about the cause. So that makes up for some of the motivation, like where money can't be the motivation. So it's the passion for public education or Catholic education, in your case, that really is what's driving the quality trustees. Is that correct?
I think it's one of them. Now, in terms of statecraft, Steve, there's a point here that needs to be made of the merits of being of a trustee, that a lot of people who may not have been a trustee or have no experience working with a board environment, they would benefit from knowing this, is that within the board, when you're trying to come to a cohesion under one, there's a lot of negotiation that happens amongst people who have various interests and differences. And I think there's a lot of merit in the idea of a board supporting the decision, regardless of whether decision goes in your favor or not. So in Canada today, in the province of Ontario today, we have what's called partyism, where blue always votes blue, red always votes red, right? And that's kind of the end of it, more or less. Like, how much dissent do we actually see? Fair enough. But when you get down to municipal politics and the board level, you have to work with people of whom you disagree with. And that kind of negotiation and that kind of like give and take is invaluable to the province and the federal level. Imagine a conservative party that agreed with the Liberal Party, right? Imagine the Liberal Party agreeing with the Conservative Party, right? I don't necessarily see that in a lot of our, let's say, upper tier politicians. And I think it's because they jump a lot of steps, right? So I'm not entirely impressed with the level of statecraft we see at these upper levels, because I think there's merit to both sides. I do think there's a lot of merit of a liberal policy within a conservative agenda and vice versa. Our values are interchangeable, but you have to be open to it. And at the school board level, at the municipal level, you have to be open to the ideas of those of whom you differ with. And that is something that you learn at the trustee level and you learn at the municipal level. And I think if more people went through that logical progression, then you would start to see a provincial politic and a federal politic where there was more harmony instead of all this division and vitriol all the time. I just don't see there being any need for it. It's bad for the country, I think. So in that sense, I think this is the school of hard knocks, pardon the pun. Being a trustee is a school of hard knocks. And I mean, I would like to see a lot of MPs. I would like to see a lot of MPPs have to do this before they go up to the other levels. Prove to me that you can make a difference in the school board. Prove to me you can make a difference in the city, and then let's talk about the province, and then let's talk about the country. That's my approach anyways.
Okay, so just moving on to some issues then related to the school board and education, because that's what you guys do. Obviously, the governance is one issue, but it's been suggested to me by the presidents of OSSTF in KPR and in Durham, which are not unions that represent your staff, but they suggested that maybe the whole trustee thing is a bit of a distraction from some of the real issues. So what would you categorize as real issues faced by our education system at this time?
Parent involvement. I think there's a disconnect there. A lot of parents will come to me and say that they want to get involved, they just don't necessarily feel welcome or this and that. Various perspectives they have there. Community involvement is imperative to a functioning school board. So I think parent involvement, community involvement is a priority here. A solution here would be giving parents and school committees the opportunity to have influence over some type of school budget, let's say. So they had an initiative where school committees had like $500 or something like this that they could spend on, like play days and all this kind of stuff. I would say give them $2,000, at least keep it up with inflation, things of this nature. So that initiative that the provincial government came out with for teachers, where teachers have discretionary income to spend on supplies and stuff like that. I think parents on those school councils, they need that as well. And it always goes to a great cause. When I was going to those councils, those people, they do great work. And it's not easy because times are tight right now, and so are budgets. So parent involvement, I think, is a huge opportunity moving forward.
Okay, that's good. Any other major issues that you see that maybe the provincial government is addressing them, but any issues that perhaps they're not addressing with some of the changes that are coming?
I would like to see some initiative on artificial intelligence. Earlier in the year, I wanted to investigate the opportunities of banning AI. This was a conversation we had at the board level. Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with the youth, a lot of conversations with parents, and of course I've done my research. And AI is certainly nuanced, and it is interesting when you talk to the students and how they use AI to complete assignments and things of this nature. I'm at the gym. I'm always talking to these kids, right? And they're pretty open about this stuff. And I just wonder, I always ask, like, are you actually learning while you're using AI to help you with assignments and things of this nature? And like, what is your retention, right? And I think there's a lot of positivity there, but I am also a little concerned. I think we need to support our teachers. I think AI can support our teachers, but it also could replace our teachers, unfortunately, in the minds of students. So I would like to see some provincial body investigate this further. I'm sure they are, but I would like to. They're probably just waiting to see how it all plays out. I don't know. I'm a little bit ahead of this. I'm very reserved when it comes to AI. There's some things that I'm not too happy about, and other stuff I think is very positive. But I need to see some official reports from the province on this before I make a decision.
I've seen more and more, and of course I have a background in education as a teacher and a school administrator, so I pay attention to this stuff, and I'm starting to see a little bit more of a groundswell against the idea of as much screen time as we afford our students. And I'm not familiar with the policy of PVNC Catholic in terms of the use of Chromebooks, but that's one big thing that people are maybe pushing back on a little bit now. And would you like to see more or less of that and tech emphasis and maybe a graduated use of AI, or I mean, let's face it, it's a reality. I remember when cell phones weren't, everywhere, and there were constant issues about how do we manage cell phones in schools. And eventually we learned that we had to teach proper use of it and manage that, and that kind of got out of control. So I think we're at another stage with computers and screen time and all that sort of thing, and maybe we have to start managing the tech a little bit more, including AI. But what are your thoughts about reducing the use of computers and screens at school to develop some of the other skills that may have faded because of that?
It's a great question. You having the experience of which you have, and the listeners having the experience of which they have. When novelty is introduced into education, I think how we deal with such matters is important in so much as how do we learn from what worked and what didn't. So you mentioned cell phones, and you had said there was some nuance in maybe like 2007, 2010. That's about when I was in high school, and I remember, that's becoming more and more familiar. Of course, it's only increased since then. So I'm not familiar with what the policies were at that time in 2007, 2010. But we would have to go back and see, okay, well, what worked and what didn't. You have this device being brought into classrooms, could invite plagiarism, could invite cheating and things of this nature. So there might be some commonality between AI and laptops and cell phones. So I think that's a good comparison. So I would go there. But that knowledge, that body of knowledge is within the teachers who've been working here for 20 years, 30 years. So I would certainly want a more comprehensive, survey from them. I believe there is a province now that is implementing restrictions on screen time.
Manitoba has announced that they're going to restrict social media for people who are under 16 years of age. I'm not familiar with what Alberta's done at this point, but
I think Manitoba is what I was thinking. Now, Steve, you've worked in education for a long time. So if we don't use laptops, if we don't use screens, then what are we going to use? Pencils, right?
Pens, pencils.
So I think here we now get into accessibility. There are a lot of children of whom rely on computer screens. They rely on that mode of learning. Right? So there has to be an inclusivity and a flexibility when it comes to, there's no blanket policy. So we can't just say, well, all computers are bad for all students. No, actually, certain students need laptops. They need them. We might need more screen time for certain students, but they can't get that screen time because they don't have the laptop. That's a big issue right now. A laptop for every student. Not all schools can actually provide the means to kids to acquire the education of which they need in an accessible way. So what would you say to that? It's like pencil is not a suitable solution. I wouldn't think.
Well, there are certain skills that come with that sort of thing, and it doesn't have to be a complete wipeout of computers and screen time by any stretch, because that's a reality in our society. At the same time, right now, grade 7s to 12, certainly in the DDSB, and I'm pretty sure the Durham Catholic Board, that have Chromebooks assigned to them, and that's an accessibility thing, because there is increased demand that work be completed on computers and digital work, and especially through COVID with all the online classrooms and that sort of thing, that that took care of that accessibility and equity thing. But people are wondering if maybe we need to scale that back a little bit and put more emphasis on some of the writing skills and the fine motor skills, and learning how to actually write with pens and pencils and that sort of thing. So it is a complex issue, and the more of those nuances as you try to roll it back, special education, students with various types of learning challenges who would benefit from a computer and access to a computer and maybe can't afford a computer from their home. There's all those different things. So it is a complex issue, but I was just wondering about your thoughts about the beginning of this tide of kind of pushing back against everything digital. So I appreciate your response that way. The ministry has put out this idea of financial literacy to equate it to the actual literacy requirement that grade 10s now have in order to graduate. And they're looking at a similar kind of qualification around financial literacy. What are your thoughts about that?
Financial literacy. This is one of those subjects of which I think artificial intelligence is really going to support the Canadian youth moving forward. Any child can use ChatGPT and use it to a degree of which they all of a sudden become an accountant. This is a reality now. Financial literacy is very important. It's certainly attainable and it's accessible for any student. So having that baked in the curriculum is ideal for sure. And I do think a lot of us can take solace in appreciating that AI is going to amount to financial literacy increasing dramatically. It's phenomenal. And I think we all just need to kind of accept that and kind of have a conversation about that. That kids, myself, yourself, we can use ChatGPT. It can come up with a financial plan and you can interact with it on a day-to-day basis to keep yourself accountable. Kids do it, adults do it. It's the reality of the world we're living in right now. So it's good to see the government making that adjustment. Debt is really high in the country right now. People need to make smart choices. A lot of Canadians always make good choices, I think. So we are doing our part here in Ontario to make sure that kids have an understanding of how important debt and savings is. So yeah, I think that's a good step in the right direction. And I'm just speaking for myself. By the way, everything I'm saying here now, okay, for this entire interview is just me speaking for myself, not for the board, okay? Just so that we're clear, that's the disclaimer.
Excellent. I appreciate that clarification, especially as we go into the next idea here. You have a new social media presence. Tell us about that.
Yes, I do have my Facebook page, and I got 80 followers on my Facebook page. I love Clarington. I love engaging with the people of Clarington. There is no media in Clarington, Steve. I talked to you a long time ago. You're it, okay? How much development have we actually had in the media landscape in Clarington? You know, I would actually ask you that question like that. My Facebook page is a necessity. If you're a statesman in Clarington and you don't have a Facebook page and you're not active on it, then you're not being held accountable. Am I wrong?
You're losing part of your reach, certainly.
What mechanisms of accountability do we have here in Clarington is what I would ask.
Orono Weekly Times, Exit 425. I'd say the DurhamRegion.com is not a huge level of accountability in this area, but that someone would debate me with that one. So, but I certainly think Orono Weekly Times is a big one. Increasingly, there's a few on the landscape. There's a few Substack accounts and other accounts that are working to have some accountability built into them. So I've seen some stuff on Instagram. Is that all under JMedia 2021?
No. I have my Clarington official representative accounts. Instagram is a different platform, so you would put a lot of videos on there. Engagement with the community, getting out to community events, interviewing people. That's part of our strategic plan here at the PVNC, connecting with the community. So much of this initiative is all just based on the strategic plan. I came back to the board in November. I said, okay, well, what are we doing? So we got a new strategic plan. It says connect with the communities. All right. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. No problem. So I open up my Facebook page, and ways I communicate with the community is my motions, right? The motions that I'm actually bringing to the board. And the communities have received those very, very well. Very, very well. These are things that need to get done. So the community needs to know about it, whether the media wants to report on it or not. I don't think there's ever been a media report on some of these motions. A couple, actually. The one where I tried to make our board meetings recordings available to the public, that got some media attention. My whole argument there, if you didn't know, was that the board needs an archive of videos to counterbalance any AI misinformation. So the public can go out there and record our board meetings. Okay, there's nothing preventing the public from tuning into the board meeting and recording it. Mm-hmm. So I was saying we need to have an official standard here. We need to have an official archive so that the public can go in and view the video and counterbalance any sort of AI, whatever. The minutes aren't enough. So the debate played out the way it played out, and it didn't get approved. So here in Clarington, 50-minute drive. A lot of people have been talking about this for a long time, accessibility. So that story got some attention. But my motions related to looking at redrawing, sending a letter to the education minister to evaluate the boundaries, right, which haven't been looked at since 1999. My motion to do a vote of non-confidence on the chairman, no attention. My motion for the Catholic Teachers Guild, no attention. My motion to have various reports related to my sanctions. I think the public, now in fact, I think the ministry is saying all this information has to be public. Those motions, which are huge, people want to know why I was sanctioned from the board. And so I brought forward a motion and I was saying, let the public know, right? They need to know. Bring out the reports and whatever. The media doesn't report on any of this stuff, Steve. So, I'm happy to put it on my page, but we don't have a media here in Clarington that is really pulling their weight. They're sort of picking and choosing, I guess. I don't know what's going on here. But as a journalist, I went to school for journalism. I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed. It's supposed to be objective as journalists.
Well, part of the premise of Exit 425 is to give the voice to people, to kind of skip around the media so that nobody can say, well, the media is interpreting that, because I want people to hear from Josh Glover or any other person that I interview in their own voice. And after a couple of things that have happened, I've made the promise that I won't be editing the content of what you say. I might edit my content to make it more fluid, but I will not edit content, like change my question through editing or change your answer, because I want people to know what you're thinking in your voice and not change that. And so that direct connection with people, and that's the value of the recorded meetings where people can go and listen and hear what Josh Glover actually says in a meeting, to hear what the chairman says in a meeting, and to hear what the other trustees say and how they respond to you. And that's the value of those board meetings, properly recorded and shared, because we have the technology. And so instead of, depending on people to drive whatever length of time it takes to get to the board office or municipal council or whatever, then they can listen to what people are actually saying and not hear what reporters are reporting. So I appreciate that idea. I appreciate that motion that you made, and I'll say I can't understand why you would not record it and make it available to people, at least for a period of time. So what are the accounts that people can reach you at on social media or see all this stuff?
Joshua Glover, Clarington representative. That's the big one, where I post all my communicados, all my thoughts on there as it relates to my role as a Clarington representative. That's the Facebook page, and great numbers, great numbers. I'm happy to provide this information. I'm still kind of becoming acclimated with, I suppose, like community standards. You have these different groups on Facebook, right? And you want to be very respectful of the public. You don't want just too much politics and all this kind of stuff, right? So it's taken a while to kind of get used to that. I think Clarington is together, but we're seeing some signs of maybe division. I don't know how you feel about that, but it seems that within the municipal level, there's been a lot of talk about bullying and clipping, and that's another thing, I guess, just briefly. This interview that we're recording now, it's going off in history, and from here on out, people are going to be able to clip little pieces and whatever, right? That's a reality. That's the risk. I say bring it on. It is what it is. We need more humans. You got to stand on your square. I'm not scared. I encourage all. You shouldn't be running for municipal council or MPPs and things of this nature if you're not up for the sort of modern challenges. And you got to have courage. So go ahead and clip me. Hit me with your best shots. Direct challenge.
Well, I will be clipping parts of this interview to promote it on different platforms. Do you have an Instagram account?
Yeah, same thing. Trustee Glover. I'm not too active with Instagram. I don't have maybe during, moving forward, I'll probably be more active with it. But Facebook seems to be where all the community is. There's
Okay.
TikTok, but I don't know about TikTok yet. Are you on TikTok?
I am on TikTok, so
Okay.
probably one of the oldest guys on there. So there you go. All right. So May 1st, the start of the municipal election cycle. Election takes place October 26th, 2026. Any news?
What do you mean, any news? May
Anything
1st,
you'd like to share and disclose about future plans?
Well, that would be, I understand why you would ask that question. Sure. Things at school board are still going on. So I don't know what's going on in the municipal side of things, but at the school board, we're busy. I'm too busy to kind of focus in on that particular. May 1st isn't nothing for me at all. I'm going to be still working at the board. And until that ends, you can kind of like maybe go to Punta Cana like you did, take a break from it all. But I'm still in the thick of it, Steve. Things are still going on. We're on a mission here. So I'm looking forward to the weeks ahead. Things are still going on. No, there's no news on that front. Yeah.
Worth a shot. Listen, I really appreciate you meeting me here at Exit 425. Once again, I'll ask, how can people reach out and connect with you directly?
Yes, Facebook for sure. I have my official PVNC email on there. My number, my personal number, give me a call. Remember, folks, everything I said here today is my opinion. It is not representative of the board, okay? It is my opinion. It's not the board's opinion. So there's that. You got my email. You got my number. Feel free to give me a call. I'm here to represent you. Happy to do it. Thank you so much for your time there, Steve. And God bless Clarington. Take care.
Thanks again.